Hello, dear viewer. Thank you so much for joining me today. I would like to read on something that's been on my mind that I think Spirit's been leading me to read on. And a lot of you tune in because you are intuitive yourselves. And many of you leave comments about what insights you gained from the cards and about, psychic flashes you have, dreams you have. So I'm thinking that it'd be great to share with you how I develop my ability to read cards, because I do think that we all have this ability. It is a skill. Some people have it stronger than others from birth or from some difficult life experience they had, or even a near death experience. But I believe it is a skill that all of humanity actually has, a sixth sense, an ability to hear from spirit. I think that the reality that we see with our physical eyes and hear with our physical ears is only it's a limited view of the whole that we do have access to. We do have access to more information than that. And I believe that we do have a source, that there are spiritual mysteries. And so many people have been able to sense the loved ones or angels or beings who had passed, and they have been able to sense that and sense communication from them in one way or another. So I believe there's a lot of evidence that there's more than we can see and hear with our five senses. And so there is a sixth sense, and I do believe that is true. I also believe we're very creative beings. So I wanted to do a video about reading tarot and using it as a tool. And I may do a video about what the cards mean to me, but frankly, that's not the biggest determiner of your readings. With tarot, I think it is a wonderful tool. It helps get you in touch with your own intuition, but those on the other side, they absolutely love it when we use tarot and any kind of other tools like that opens up our minds to hearing from them, because they want to tell us, they want to guide us, they want to help us. The loving source is so very loving, and I think every being who lives now and every being past and future has a part of that source, a part of that divinity, and we are indeed all one. We are indeed connected. That divinity is one big whole. So the tarot is yet another tool that allows us to talk to them. Now, when I began reading tarot, I just felt compelled to read a whole bunch, and that's how you learn. You read and you read and you read again. In fact, I started reading and realizing that Spirit was giving me meanings for certain cards. Like the cards become shorthand. They become shorthand for language. They become a language between you and the other side is what they become. And I realized Spirit was giving me all kinds of meanings for the different cards that would come up to me, and they were developing this language with me. And so, oh, look at that, we have the Death card. For instance, the Death card always has meant an ending, an internal acceptance of an ending. But what I did is I thought, boy, oh boy, I'd better quick study the agreed upon meanings of these cards, because I don't want to get too far afield and have meanings of these cards that could resemble the consensus not one bit. There is no real consensus on the meanings of the cards, but there are certain meanings of certain cards that tend to come up again and again by different readers and in different books and by different sources. And, so I kind of wanted to gain some familiarity with that before I had gotten a complete language from the other side. And it was too far afield from what anybody else thought the cards meant. So that's how it worked. And it really came to me that I needed to read and just keep reading. Because really, this is one more tool for developing that spiritual intuition. And it is wonderful when we start to develop that. It's no contest. about how quickly it can go, it's something we're naturally doing. So chances are, if you listen to my channel or channels like it, you too are naturally trying to improve your contact with the spiritual. It's magical when you think that, when you get to understand that you can hear from your intuition. You can use cards, or you can simply ask. You can ask your internal self. You can ask spirit. You can ask God. You can ask whomever you are envisioning. You can ask for answers and guidance, and you receive it. You can even ask concrete questions like I frequently do. I do throughout my day. Is it best to do this now, or is it best to do that later? You know, what does that person think about me, feel about me? I have found that my ability to know what people are thinking and feeling has increased as my judgment of them has decreased. Spirit isn't going to give us abilities that we're not ready for. So if I want to have a better understanding of how to perceive what someone else is thinking and feeling, I need to use my empathy to put myself in their shoes and not be judgmental. And I've gotten to the point where I can pretty much understand how people think everything they think and feel everything they feel. And I just don't have that much judgment about it anymore. I kind of have the assumption that if my experience had been the same as theirs and was the same as theirs is in this moment, I would probably be thinking and feeling the same thing. So as my judgment has decreased of people, I've been able to really gotten much more accurate at understanding what they're thinking and feeling. And people may be surprised. I may understand what they're thinking and feeling and still be very loving to them, even if they're upset with me, because I know why they're thinking and feeling that. And I really have no judgment. I really have no judgment of them. Not that I'm always, not that I'm always in that mind frame. I get lost in my own, insecurities, and then I'm not. Paying really good attention to what's going on with other people, because I'm being self-absorbed in those moments anyway. So I'm not trying to read anybody anyway. but but most of the time I do pretty well. So it's sort of like we're given this information as we're ready for it, and when it won't completely upset and disturb us too, because Spirit loves us. They don't want to upset and disturb us. They want to guide us. They want to guide us to be more loving to ourselves, and make better decisions, and use their wisdom and guidance, to have blessings in our lives. That's what they want. They love to comfort us. They love to talk to us. So the cards become another tool. So for instance, I can sit down and say, what kind of evening should I have, Spirit? What should be my main priority this evening, Spirit? And I can start to pull some cards. Now you guys are going to gain a window into my day, because you're going to hear about it here. We have the Two of Swords. So in other words, I'm indecisive. I've got a couple different plans I'm thinking of. And I can tell you what they are. They're get a lot done. Bing, 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 a whole bunch of to-do list. Get a lot done. Or they're prioritize rest, meditation. The Knight of Cups. Okay, so that is Spirit on the other side, trying to bring me a loving message, trying to bring me a loving message, a comforting message. In some ways, like an attentive suitor would, like saying, I care about you, take good care of yourself, that kind of thing. You don't have anything to prove. You are deserving, that kind of thing. See, you turn these cards over to Spirit and let Spirit talk to you through them, and you're going to hear good things. You're going to hear calming things. That's how you know you're in touch with Spirit. I don't think Spirit ever gives me anything that freaks me out. Even if there is something that Spirit gives me that feels like a difficult reality, or a self-accountability thing that's a little difficult, there's this strength that comes with it, and this knowing and this settled feeling of it. I can change in this area. Even if it's something like that, there's this settled feeling. I know that if something is bringing me fear, if something is raising my blood pressure, if something is bringing me any kinds of insecurity, uh, negative feelings about myself, I know that's not from spirit. That's not from spirit. That is my brain, my ego, the self that I've created on this earth, that I and others have kind of constructed. That's that trying to figure everything out to protect itself. As if there is no underlying eternal spirit, which there is. There's no reason to protect that ego. That ego is it will remain forever, and our loved ones will be able to communicate with that being, that because it is a creation, but we are so much more than that. And one day this ego that we've created here on this earth will unite with our higher self, our eternal soul, and which unites with the whole, and have access to a lot more information and a lot more understanding. So that's the kind of thing. See, these mean things. Now, the thing is, each card can mean different things in different settings and for different readings. That's why it's not enough to simply know what the cards mean, even if you have developed this language with spirit and you know that this card usually means this when spirit's giving it to you. That's not enough, because you also, while you're reading, you pay attention to your gut. And a good way to do that is to ask yourself how you feel about a certain card. If you pull a card, you may have seen me do this. Pull a card. There we go. Six of Swords. And Spirit's bringing this up as an example right now because I've been pulling this card a lot in the last 2 years, haven't I? Sort of like the difficult lessons we learn that benefit us in the future, take us to calmer shores, to a more hospitable land. That is a card that keeps coming up for us in the last couple of years. Now, when Spirit gives me that card, that's usually what it means. But not always, I will pull that card in some readings and go, for some reason, Spirit is having me look at the figure that is bowed here in the boat and the sadness that she has. Okay, so what does that mean? What is this about? So I can hone in on it. I can take a little quiet time and think about what aspect of the card Spirit's trying to call my attention to. If I pull a card that I don't pull a lot, and it's not one that Spirit's used as shorthand very much for me lately to communicate a certain thing, and I'm not exactly sure what it means. Here we go. The Six of Wands card. That's one. That's victory card, right? But whose victory? And what's the victory, right? It's a little ambiguous here. So I can say to myself, well, how do I feel about this card when I see it? Do I feel like that's a good thing? If I feel like that's a good thing, okay. And then I could start thinking about the sort of the feeling around the card, and then Spirit can bring in some clarity about what that card means. And I think we have to not be afraid to go far afield. We can say a card means if what Spirit's trying to say to us, maybe Spirit is giving us a card that's a little ambiguous like that for us in this particular reading because they want us to open up our mind because they have something more specific to tell us that is unique to this situation. So if we pause and we ask ourselves, well, what kind of emotional energy that card give off? And we can hear, and then maybe I'll pull a clarifier. And I'll say, okay, I have a feeling that victory in this case is a good thing. I think it's a victory for somebody I think would be well trusted with that victory. Then I pull this one as a clarifier, right? The Ace of Cups, which can mean a peak emotional experience. My cup overfloweth. Can even mean something of a benediction with that dove coming down. It's a very supernatural kind of card. So that's positive. Right? So I feel like that's a victory that's really fulfilling for the person. And there's maybe even something spiritual about that victory. There we go. Sometimes I've pulled the victory card and it's meant somebody is getting kind of full of themselves. They're seeking the adulation, So in other words, there is no wrong answer. The the cards just give us a tool for hearing. And that's why usually we do use a spread. We'll use the Celtic cross. There's a number of different spreads that can be used. You can look up endless spreads online. And there's nothing in particular about the spread that's important. You use the one that calls to you. And if that feels like a good avenue for the way you talk with spirit, you're going to use that one more and more and get to know it better and better. There is no wrong way to do this. It's just another avenue to increasing your responsiveness to spirit and allowing spirit to help you in your day-to-day life more and more. So that is why the cards are very, they're terrific. They're a terrific tool. I think I've gotten better at reading them since I've relied more on my intuition than the textbook meaning of the cards. Because I believe that when the actual meaning of the cards that I had learned was maybe a little too important, or I was putting a little too much stock in it, that I would make more errors back then in understanding them. And now I think if I lead with, Spirit, what are you trying to say to me? And even then, if I don't have anything specific, it's the emotional tone of what the Spirit's trying to say to me. And then I can lay more clarifiers, and then it starts to become clearer to me. And if things don't get crystal clear about factual information, then they don't. But sometimes Spirit is less interested in giving me factual information than the gist of it. Sometimes what I'm getting is the gist of it. And sometimes I really am getting it's going to be all right. And sometimes I'm getting a shadow, a sense of shadow over the situation. Like, this might be kind of difficult. Or if this happens, Spirit never tells me something just to scare people or just to scare myself. Spirit is loving. Spirit is kind. Once in a while, I do get a caution, like a little caution. There's a shadow over something. It's not an entirely positive reading. And I'm feeling like, okay, they're warning us that this particular thing may happen, that particular thing may happen, but don't lose heart, because this is the purpose, or this is where we're going with it, or this is how it does resolve, or it will resolve. So sometimes really the guidance I'm getting is specific, sometimes not, but it's really interesting to me what I do get. I always ask for it to be helpful and accurate, and gosh, it's almost always quite helpful. And if it's not quite helpful, that's because my brain, my ego has thought of it, not Spirit, So the longer I do this, the more in touch with Spirit I get. And I recommend that if you're reading your cards, you read them frequently. Pull them out for anything. Sometimes it is hard to read on ourselves in our own situations in life. That's true. So sometimes it's nice to get some validation, somebody we trust. What's your intuition about this? But frankly, I've gotten in the habit of, if I don't know it in my spirit, in my gut, in my soul, that's what Spirit's trying to tell me, I'm not going to put myself in a twist trying to figure it out. I'm going to wait for clarity to come. So I think it's important. It's just really important to kind of get in touch. This is a tool. This is a tool. This is a tool. It's not literal. It's a tool. Okay. Well, I just thought I would let y'all know how I use tarot to communicate with the other side, and encourage you all to do so as well. But remember, if you're hearing something that is not helpful, that is fear-inducing, that is, encouraging reckless or unloving behavior, that's not from Spirit. It's just not. Okay. Speaking with Spirit should make you feel better. And if it pricks little anxieties, you can safely dismiss those and know that's your brain. That's your human brain that always wants to survive everything and try to look for a problem in everything. And let's identify the trouble and eradicate it. That's what our human brain does to survive. Our spirit knows that we're eternal beings. And thank goodness we can live in the eternal peace that we know. Now is forever. We are forever. Other human beings, other spirits are forever. And that's how we should be feeling when we're talking to spirit. Then we know we're getting somewhere. All right. Well, I thank you all so very much. You have a good day. Bye-bye.